Hello and welcome. You're watching WION The World as One. My name is Huascaran. Here's a look at all the top stories that we're tracking for you right now. US President Donald Trump has said that the United States would hold nuclear talks with Iran next week. He teased the possibility of a deal even after claiming that the recent US strikes had crippled the Islamic Republic's atomic program. The 12-day conflict saw Iran launching a wave of missiles at Iran, with the US targeting the country's 3 nuclear sites. Trump claimed Iran was not going to build bombs for a long time, adding that the strikes had set the program back by decades. US President Donald Trump has publicly expressed his support for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, calling for the pardon or cancellation of his corruption trial. Trump described the trial as a witch hunt and believes Netanyahu deserves better treatment given his contributions to Israel. He added that the US would like to save him like it did in his country. Netanyahu was indicted in November 2019 on charges of bribery, fraud and breach of trust, which he vehemently denies. Dozens of Israeli settlers attacked the Palestinian of Kafr Malik in the West Bank, sparking clashes that resulted in deaths of 3 Palestinians and injuries of 7 others. The Israeli military responded after reports of stone throwing and exchanged fire with Palestinians who were firing at forces and hurling rocks. 5 Israeli suspects were arrested and an Israeli army officer was likely wounded. In a separate incident, a 15-year-old Palestinian boy was killed by Israeli forces during a raid on the town of Al Yamoun, west of Jenin, in the occupied West Bank. According to the Palestinian Red Crescent, their teams handled a critical case involving the teenager before confirming his death. The teenager was shot in the neck and pronounced dead shortly after. Colombian President Gustavo Petro signed a labor reform after its approval from the Colombian Senate earlier this month. The bill includes measures to enshrine an 8-hour daytime workday, increase weekend and holiday pay, and require social security payments from delivery app drivers. Petro said the Ministry of Labor must create a task force to ensure employers are applying the reform. He also encouraged Colombians to vote for officials who will give to the law in the 2026 legislative and presidential elections. The approved reform will immediately increase wages for work conducted from 7 p.m. onwards and gradually increase the surcharge for Sunday and holiday work through July 2027. Analysts estimate for increased labor costs as a result of the bill range from 6.8 to 35%.
Hola, hola. Muchas gracias, señor presidente. La realidad en Colombia. Muchas gracias para todos y para todas.
Thousands of workers and retirees marched through Buenos Aires to protest President Javier Milei's austerity measures, which they claim have taken away their rights. The protesters, including activists and union leaders, demanded decent work, fair wages and an end to repression. According to reports, over 100 unions and social organizations participated in the march to the Ministry of Deregulation and State Transformation. Supporters of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro government took to the streets on Wednesday, backing Iran amid a fragile ceasefire in Israel-Iran conflict. Maduro has proposed hosting a peace summit for West Asia, highlighting Venezuela's long-standing ties with Tehran and the country's commitment to regional stability and peace. The proposal comes in the aftermath of a 12-day conflict between Iran and Israel in Tel Aviv, and the Trump administration bombed Iranian territory.
Saldremos en franca marcha para dar en esta.
The new Kiswah was installed on the Kaaba in Mecca's Grand Mosque, marking the beginning of the Islamic New Year. This tradition involves replacing the old Kiswah with a new one every year. It is made of silk and cotton, adorned with Quranic verses. This annual tradition is a significant ritual in the Islamic calendar, symbolizing renewal and respect for the holy site. Muslims believe it was originally built by the Prophet Abraham on the site of the first house of worship built by Adam. Two Japanese tourists were rescued by Peruvian authorities after getting lost on Mount Huascaran, the highest peak in Peru. The rescue operation was launched after one of the tourists sent out a distress satellite signal to a base in the United States, who then alarmed the Peruvian authorities. Unfortunately, one of the tourists succumbed to hypothermia due to extreme conditions shortly after being rescued. President of the Peru Mountain Guides Association, Petro, said he believed the climbers got lost in the fog while descending the mountain. As a result, they were forced to spend the night at 6,500 meters over sea level.
Ya estamos aproximando ya.
North Korea has completed construction of a massive tourist zone on its east coast, a key project driven by a leader, Kim Jong-un, to promote tourism. Kim attended an inaugural ceremony for the Wonsan Kalma coastal tourist area, which is expected to accommodate about 20,000 visitors. According to the state media, Kim Jong-un said the country would build more large-scale tourist zones swiftly and has been rebuilding the seaside city Wonsan, a vacation destination for locals, to turn it into a billion-dollar tourist hotspot. This development plans for Wonsan have mushroomed since they first were announced in 2014. The state media said that the tourist zone will open for domestic guests from the 1st of July without mentioning foreign tourists. North Korea sealed its borders in 2020 at the start of the pandemic, but has been slowly lifting restrictions since 2023. In his first address to the MP since taking office, South Korean President Lee Jae-myung has called on Parliament to approve a $22.1 billion supplementary budget to boost the country's economy. He emphasized that decisions should be made in the national interest rather than based on progressive or conservative ideologies. Ecuador's President Daniel Noboa has said that the country's most wanted fugitive leader of the Los Choneros criminal group has been recaptured after escaping jail last year. Jose Adolfo Macias, also known as Fito, disappeared from the prison when he was being held in January 2024 amid an explosion of violence, including the on-air invasion of a television station by armed men and the hostage-taking of more than 200 prison officials. Noboa said Ecuador had requested he be extradited to the United States, where he is set to face international drug and gun charges in a federal court in New York. He was sentenced in 2011 to 34 years in prison for various crimes, including drug trafficking and murder. A tragic incident in the Indian state of Uttarakhand. A tempo traveller carrying pilgrims fell into the Alaknanda river near the village on the Badrinath National Highway. Rescue teams have recovered 2 bodies, one near the accident site and the other from the river near Rudraprayag. According to authorities, several people are still missing, while some sustained injuries. According to reports, the vehicle was headed towards Badrinath Dham with 20 people on board, including the driver. The pilgrims had come on Uttarakhand's Char Dham Yatra from Udaipur in Rajasthan. Tornado caught on camera crossing a rural road near Heartland, Minnesota on Wednesday. Cell phone footage shows the driver cautiously approaching the tornado as the debris can be seen swirling into the air. Fortunately, no visible buildings appear to be damaged as the tornado moved across the road. Violent thunderstorms and flash flooding have claimed at least 2 lives in Paris. Iconic landmarks were swallowed by the storm. Video shared on social media showed the Eiffel Tower vanishing behind a curtain of rain and clouds. Heavy rainfall and flash flooding have disrupted daily life. Commuters were left waiting at metro stations for hours, and several flights were also delayed. The dollar slipped to multi-year lows against the euro and the Swiss franc as concerns about the future independence of the US Federal Reserve undermine faith in the soundness of the country's monetary policy. According to a Wall Street Journal report, US President Donald Trump had toyed with the idea of selecting and announcing Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell's replacement by September or October, aiming to undermine his position. Trump on Wednesday called Powell terrible for not lowering interest rates sharply, while the Fed chair was telling the Senate that policy had to be cautious as the president's tariff plans were a risk to inflation. For now, the dollar is under broad pressure as the euro gained to its highest levels since September 2021. Oil prices inched higher. Extended gains from the previous days as a larger than expected draw in US crude stocks signaled firm demand, while investors remain cautious about the Iran-Israel ceasefire and stability in West Asia. Brent crude futures rose to 67.83. US oil traded above $65 a barrel. Both benchmarks then climbed nearly 1% in the previous session and recovered from early week losses after data showed resilient US demand. Job vacancies in Australia rebounded in the May quarter, led by openings in the construction and professional sectors. Experts say that's a sign demand for labour remained resilient despite a soft economy. Now, figures from the Australian Bureau of Statistics also showed the vacancies bounced 2.9% in the 3 months to May, partly reversing a 4.3% drop in the previous quarter, which ended in February. Job openings were still down 2.8% from May last year, but that was the smallest annual decline in the past 2 years. Nvidia stock has hit a record high hand chipmaker reclaimed the crown as the world's most valuable company after an analyst said the chipmaker was set to ride a golden wave of artificial intelligence. Shares of the California-based company rose over 4% to a record high of $154.1. The rise sent Nvidia's stock market value to $3.76 trillion, overtaking Microsoft, which was last valued at $3.65 trillion. Nvidia's latest gains reflect the US stock market's return to the AI trade that fueled massive gains in chip stocks and related technology companies in recent years and optimism about the emerging technology. A fiery opening day in Barbados saw 14 wickets fall as Australia were bowled out for 180. Jayden Seales starred with a 5 while Shamar Joseph took 4. Travis Head top scored with 59 for the visitors. In reply, West Indies slipped to 157 for 4 at stumps. Mitchell Starc struck twice at the host trail 123 runs. The match remains openly poised with both sides relying on their pacers. It's the move everyone expected, and now it's official. The Dallas Mavericks have selected Cooper Flagg with the #1 overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft. Flagg took center stage at Barclays Center, becoming just the second #1 pick in Dallas's history. The first since Mark Aguirre in 1981, and he didn't just make franchise history, he made NBA history too. Flagg became the second youngest member to take on #1 overall, just 8 days older than LeBron James when he was drafted back in 2003 by the Cleveland Cavaliers. Disgraced former Spanish Football Federation Chief Luis Rubiales will appeal to the Supreme Court after a Spanish court confirmed a $12,500 fine against him. For forcibly kissing Jenny Hermoso, Spain's top criminal court had found Rubiales guilty of sexual assault in February. The court had also imposed a fine on the 47-year-old. Rubiales challenged that ruling, but an appeals court has now upheld it. The judge has also confirmed that Rubiales has been cleared of coercion charges. For latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.